I was now sitting down and trying to explain to my wives what I really am. Then I said I'm a monster and demon hunter. I killed a lot of very evil monsters and demons over the years, and I'm incredibly powerful and immortal, and I don't need a gun to kill anyone. And then Dawn said, but you can't be telling the truth, right? And then I said, yes, you know I am telling you the truth, Dawn. I mean, think about it. Why do you think Art the Clown can't die? Because he's an immortal soul that literally went to hell and he was brought back to life by a demon. And then I looked at Kate Beckinsale and then I continued and I said, think about everything you have all seen lately. Art is living proof that I'm telling you the truth. He literally can't die. It's impossible. You remember that gun I showed you, Dawn? Well, that particular 44 Magnum was designed to kill gods and celestial beings, and Art tried to kill me with it and it didn't work, and I caught that bullet with my bare hands and I flicked the bullet back at him using my strength and super speed, and it obliterated him, but he just came back to life because he's living in what is called his immortal body. But someone can do something about that now, can't they? And then I looked at Kate Beckinsale again and then she said, fine, I was the one that sent that asshole Art the Clown to kill him, and I'm sorry. Okay, there, I said it. I feel really bad about it now. And then Kate's eyes turned orange and glowed, and then Dawn and Vicky Hayes got a bit scared and they stood up and I said, calm down. And then Dawn asked, what are you people? And then Ruby and Megan's eyes turned black and they all said, we are demons. And then they smiled and I said, girls, you're scaring them. And then Dawn said, oh my god, no, am I going to hell? And then Megan laughed and said, maybe. And then Dawn started to panic and so did Vicky Hayes, and she said, oh my god, what are you people? And I said, it's fine, we aren't going to hurt you. And then Megan said, we might hurt you a little bit. And then I said, Megan, stop it, you're scaring them. And then she laughed like a villain, and then Kate Beckinsale started laughing, and then I got angry and I stood up and my eye pupils glowed bright red and I said, enough. And then all the female demons' eyes went back to normal and they went silent, and now the girls were looking at me in my glowing red pupils, and I said, I wanted to tell you all the truth, but things got complicated and you all had sex with me and I fell in love with you all, and now you're having my children. And then Megan said, let them leave, we don't need them. And then I sighed and said, you can do whatever you want, but I hope you will all stay with me. And then Vicky Hayes walked in front of me and she said, you met my sister and we don't even know you now. And then I said, you know me, Vicky Hayes, I'm still the man you made love to that night, and I am still the man that married you. And then she said, I know you're a hero and a good person, but I can't be with you right now, I barely know you anymore. And then Vicky Hayes walked towards the door and I walked up behind her and she said, I'm sorry, I need some time. And then I said, Vicky, wait, I have to tell you something else. And then she said, I can't do this right now, I need to leave. And then Vicky Hayes looked at Dawn and she asked her, are you coming with me? I'm staying at my sister's house. And then Dawn said, you go ahead, I'm staying with him, I can't leave him, I still love him. And then Vicky Hayes walked out the door and she got in her car and she drove to her and her sister's old house. And then Tara Hayes came outside and she saw that her sister was upset, so she asked her, Vicky, what's wrong? And then she said, Tara, I don't want to talk about right now, I just want to stay with you a while. And then I sighed when she went to stay with her sister Tara, and then I said, you might want to sit down for this, Dawn, I have something else to tell you, something that I wanted to tell Tara Hayes. And then I explained to Dawn that I can see every possible future, and in their future, if I wasn't here to stop Art the Clown, then they both would have been brutally murdered by that sick clown Art, and instead of the worst possible things happening to you too and Denise, I saved you all from your tragic murders and your inevitable deaths. I saved your lives, Dawn, and now you're pregnant and you're about to have my very powerful children, and you will never know suffering or pain again because our children will protect you with their incredible powers. I did just give you and Vicky a child, I gave you both a gift that will live forever. After I talked to you both that night and I had sex with you all, I fell in love with all of you just like I fell in love with Ruby, Megan and Kate. And then Dawn said, but I thought demons didn't have human emotions, aren't they corrupted angels? And then Megan said, yes, well, we aren't royalty, you're talking about the angels that fell from heaven into hell, they are all considered royalty, the regular demons like me are humans.